Yeah, Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev and a very good evening to one and all present here. I formally begin this session of SSRVM Lit Fest with a beautiful quote by Guru. The mind is like a mirror. Whatever comes in front of it is reflected in it. Every special occasion flags off with the blessings of the Almighty. Let us all join our hands to evoke the omnipresent.
सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा गुरुब्रह्मा गुरुविष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरुसाक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Thank you, ma'am. I, Mahamaya Sinha, on behalf of entire SSRVM family, take the privilege to welcome you all this evening to this special session, the SSRVM Pre-Lit Fest. I feel very proud to welcome our distinguished speaker of the day, Ms. Kosha Batiha. Welcome, ma'am. I also feel delighted to welcome Jai Shri Murli ma'am, Mentor for Literary Fest. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. I would also like to welcome Mr. Samir Kapadia, Library Educator and Book Distributor. Welcome, sir. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Rama Aka, Head of Academic Council, SSRVM Trust, esteemed principals, vice principals, coordinators, teachers, and librarians. Welcome you all. I would now request Devata ma'am from SSRVMBE to take over for profile reading of our distinguished guest of the day. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mahamaya ma'am. And once again, a very, very warm welcome to everyone present here. And I'm really privileged to read the profile for Ms. Kosha Batiha. Ms. Kosha Batiha is an independent illustrator, designer, and creative consultant. She is the author of the published book, Me Time, My Quarantine Journal, now available worldwide on Amazon. She's also a certified life coach and uses her life coaching skills for pro bono work. Ms. Kosha has been facilitating Values in Healthcare, a spiritual approach, values workshop for professionals through a series of structured exercises, activities, and meditations designed by the Janki Foundation UK. Currently, Ms. Kosha freelances as a visual storyteller, working with various leading agencies, corporates, and clients to provide designs and illustrations. Mandala painting, mindfulness through art, doodle workshop, create your own story as comic are some of the workshops she conducts for eminent clients like KPMG, Marsh, Ernst & Young, Jet Privilege, Citibank, Volkswagen, Naira, Experian, Tower Research Capital, etc. Wow, ma'am, that's a commendable profile. And now I would hand over the proceedings to Ms. Kosha to enlighten us with all the things that she has to present. But prior to that, I also have a humble request to all our audience. Kindly post your questions related to the session in the chat box, and we would be presenting it to Ms. Kosha. Thank you, ma'am. I hand over the proceedings to you, Kosha, ma'am.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction and the lovely beginning. It's really a pleasure for me to be here today. So thank you so much for inviting me here. And yeah, I hope it's going to be a fun-filled session for you all, because I have totally made it a power-packed 1.5 hours. So today we're just going to look into what is visual literacy, maybe the role of illustrations in books. Since I'm an illustrator, I could maybe give you a different perspective into it. And maybe we could discuss a little bit on how to read an illustration. So we know how to read the text in books. So we'll just, see how we can read an illustration. And then the last half an hour or so, we'll keep for a live demonstration where you can draw along with me. And we learn to draw very simple things. So two things. One, sorry. how art can be therapeutic and how it can be a stress reliever. So just a few exercises for that. And then maybe learn how easy it really is to start drawing. So that's today's agenda for the day. And like you were told, it's going to be a session where we're going to have a presentation, like not a very lengthy one, for a little while. And then we'll move on to the live demonstration where you can draw along with me. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end, maybe for about 5 to 10 minutes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. So we begin with that. My introduction's already been given, so thank you so much for that. And this is the book that they were talking about. It just got published in December. And I was very lucky to get the idea for this book because the idea could have come to anyone. And I'm happy that it chose me because I got to work on something that I really love to do. So I'm very thankful for that. So if anyone wants to check it out, that's the link up there. Some of the materials that you could probably gather before our live demonstration, very simple things, nothing complicated, because you don't really need fancy tools to draw. It's very simple and something that anyone can do. So you can just use normal A4 sized papers, maybe any pencil, an eraser, and any pen, a gel pen, a sketch pen, or even a ballpoint pen, whatever you have available around you. And we'll see how we can try and introduce art in our everyday lives just to make it a little more fun. So we start with what is visual literacy. And if you have any questions or anything, please do let me know. So the thing is, as teachers or as education givers, or even just people in general in any profession, we see that today we're bombarded with visuals everywhere, right? Now there's social media, there's audio visuals, there's videos. So we are increasingly, the world around us is becoming more visual in nature. So not only for students, but in fact, even people who were from the pre-internet generation, right? So it's important for everyone to really figure out what is visual literacy and try to make sense of this image intense world, because that's what the world is coming to. And also, a fascinating fact is that we process images 60,000 times faster than we process the written word. So the minute we open something and it has text and it has pictures, our eye automatically falls on the picture first and we process it so much faster than we try to start reading the text. So what is visual literacy? So we'll just start with that. If you have any comments, please feel free to, write it down on the chat. It would be nice if this could be an interactive session. So visual literacy basically is all about just understanding what you see. So when you see a visual and you understand what it's trying to tell you, that's visual literacy. So it's that simple, nothing fancy. And basically, how we see and interpret images and use visuals to convey meaning. That means the visual that's in front of us, the illustration or the image or a photograph, anything that is visual, it is trying to tell us something, right? It has meaning or it's useful for something. So when we try and understand why it's there, that's what visual literacy is all about. It is also a form of critical thinking. Now, why is it a form of critical thinking? Is because if it's there and if it has some meaning, you're trying to understand, right? You're trying to analyze or interpret why that image or that visual is there. So that is how it's also a form of critical thinking. And it's important today for people in every field. And so it's going to be so good if children start learning visual literacy like right from the beginning, because then it's just going to be helpful for them down the line, right? To understand and process what the world is trying to tell them. So visual learning not only enhances cognitive understanding, but also we understand abstract concepts. Like if something's just an abstract concept, it is more better explained with maybe special effects or visual graphics or just a visual than like a lengthy explanation, right? So sometimes it can just help a child understand an abstract concept. Some of the benefits, so I'm just going to try and keep this very brief because I don't want to take too much time on the presentations. If you have any questions or if you feel you want to go back to a slide, you can always log on to the YouTube channel and just have a look at the recording later just to see the slides in a more detailed manner if required. So basically, visual information is more memorable because we tend to remember visuals better than we tend to remember words. It's also transferred faster. So like I said, our mind processes it so much faster than we process words and written text. It also helps students communicate with the world around them. So there's this whole world that's just not in the books. And when you see with your eyes, you don't see it in words, you actually see it visually around you, right? So when you train students to understand visuals, it also helps them see the world around them in a different way. It enriches their understanding. It increases enjoyment because children or even adults like me would love to see images rather than read a lot of text. Or even if there is a lot of text, if there's an image accompanying it, it just makes it so much more fun. It creates more educated image readers. And also the fact that some of the students may not be from an English speaking background. They may be from a vernacular background, or they are not very familiar with the English language. So when they see an image with the text, it just helps them understand the concept better. So that is visual literacy. Very simply put, it's just understanding what the image is trying to tell me. So now, what is the role of illustrations in a children's book? Because we are celebrating Lit Fest and it's all about the joy of reading, right? And reading is such a pleasure. I mean, I remember I started reading pretty young because my mom used to love reading and I still love reading books. So it's just a lot of fun. But for children, that illustration that goes with the text of the book, it is so important as well. So in a children's book, the illustrations are just as important as the text in the story. And they work so well together because it's like the image is actually trying to explain the text better. And yes, some of the illustrations may be beautiful, but their actual job is to clarify the meaning of the text, because we saw sometimes children are too young to understand the concepts that are written in text, or sometimes they're not exposed to the world as much as adults are. So a lot of times they understand the world through these images. As an illustrator, I just wanted to put a little bit of the role of an illustrator in a children's book. So there are a lot of artists and painters, but an illustrator is something a little different because you need this additional skill of actually understanding the text and the context first, and then creating beautiful visuals to go with it, which explain it in a more better way, but not literally what the text is saying, but it goes beyond the story. Like if you see that, you know, an author must have written a story about a little girl, and nowhere is there anything mentioned about, you know, the family life or her personal life, but it's just a story about what happens to her. But sometimes the illustrator can think that it'll be fun to add a pet cat for the girl, and that's nowhere in the story, but you can see that in the illustration through the books, where there's this tiny cat following the girl around, or, you know, just supporting secondary characteristics like that. Or nowhere does it say that the girl loves to wear polka dotted frocks, and maybe she's just shown, you know, with her cupboard full. And so all these nuanced things, like these tiny tiny things that you don't really see in the story written down, but when you go deeper into the illustration, you see these tiny details, and it tells you so much more about the character. So the illustrator's job is to read between the lines to really understand the character that the author has written about, and then to make them more, solid, like with all these small details that are not mentioned in the text anywhere. So illustrators think about the setting, what is the environment, what is the house looking like, and what is the characterization, what is the plot, theme. So the colors and the lines and the style of illustration, everything is chosen accordingly. So it's actually a big job, but as an illustrator, I must say I love illustrating children's books. And I've been lucky enough to have had the opportunity to illustrate a few. But this is what an illustrator does. And so you see that there are different styles depending on the story, depending on so many different factors. The illustrator can choose a style of illustration. So you see a lot of books are just so different visually, whether it's their colors, like all these are water themed illustrations that I chose. But you can see the colors are a little different, the style is very different. They try to show a little bit of humor in it sometimes. So it also depends on the story and the illustrator themselves. And now, why is this important for the children? So how does the illustrations in a book help the children? There are actually so many benefits of it. Number one is it helps young readers understand and analyze the story. So sometimes they don't understand text and words as much as they understand visuals, because visuals is what we first learn, right? Naturally as human beings. It also facilitates reading. Because if you surround the child with like bright, colorful, beautiful books, then they're bound to be interested to open it, even if just to see the pictures first. And then they start getting curious when they just see the pictures and they want to know what it's about. So they also start reading the text. So illustrations are actually just as important as the text. It can also make the reading experience fun. So if you just imagine a book, okay, which is for adults, and you give that to a child with just text, and then you give them a book with pictures and text, we know what the child is going to pick, and many adults as well. It makes the reading experience fun because it explains the word to the child. So even before they can read words, they understand what is happening in the story by looking at the pictures. And sometimes they see things that they see in their everyday life, and they're so happy to be able to relate to that. Like, oh, I also have a bed sheet like that, or I also have a plant like that in my house, or something like that, that they can identify with. And also, sometimes the whatever the illustration shows, not necessarily it's there in the text, but they learn new things, they see new objects in the picture, and then they want to know what they are. So that way they can even learn more about like new words or learn more about things in the world, more than just the story. Also, sometimes children have difficulty reading, right? So, I mean, there are some children with dyslexia, or sometimes they just take a little more time to pick up on reading and words and trying to really understand what it is. So when they see the picture, it becomes easier for them to understand what the story is about. And when illustrations reflect people or objects, for example, if you see a tree or a mango tree and the child has seen that in real life, they can relate to it. Oh, I have seen this mango tree, or I know what this is, or I have seen it too, and I've been to this place, things like that. So it helps them get validity, and it validates their emotions and expressions. Also, sometimes when you see these fantastical illustrations where the animals are talking, so it just triggers the child's imagination, and it makes them realize, oh, maybe animals have feelings too. Things like that. Like, it just gives them new ideas, new possibilities, things that maybe as adults we have stopped thinking about. And, it just triggers their imagination. It also helps them discover clues. So there are a lot of children's books where, the whole story is like a mystery till the end. But in every page, the illustrator very cleverly leaves some clues. So when the children really sees the book properly, they can kind of try and figure out the mystery by themselves. So it's very fun and interactive. So it can be a lot of fun reading these kind of books. And it also helps them understand about empathy and compassion. Like, I remember a children's story that I read as a child, and it had beautiful illustrations. And it impacted me so much. I still remember the illustrations and the story so well. It was about this little girl who was very poor and she didn't really have much, and she just had one piece of bread. But when she came across someone else who was poor, and she gave that whatever little she had to the other person, and she was just going and sitting hungry, but she wanted to help with whatever little she had, right? And that really touched me so much, and I still remember that story, and I still have that book, because I just couldn't give it away because it impacted me so much. And then in the end of the story, it's like a fairy comes, or god comes, or whatever you want to call it, and then gifts her with like pieces of gold so she can go buy herself new clothes or some more food, because she's helpful. So then the angel or the fairy comes and helps her so she can help more people. So it's like things like this that teach children about empathy and compassion and how we should help people. So it can be a very noble thing. And it's like, if I was just reading that, it would not impact me as much as seeing the image of that girl who is alone, hungry, sad. And it kind of evokes emotions in you. Another thing that illustrations do is explains concepts better to children. For example, when you see an illustration of a map, and you see, when it's a story about two, three different characters living in the neighborhood, and you see there's the school, there's this person's house, there's that person's house. So when you read a huge, you know, paragraph about directions, that when you go to the second right, there is this person's house, the second left from the school is this person's house, that's going to be a little confusing. But when it's shown on a map like this, you can instantly recognize and realize where the characters stay in this imaginary world. And it just helps them understand that concept better. It also helps children explore the world within their own imagination. And so they try to connect to characters, events. They try to figure out, oh, you know what? Have I ever felt that feeling before? Or they'll say, yeah, even I get angry sometimes at my little brother or sister, things like that. So it provides also an immediate vision. So they can immediately visualize what is going on in the scene, what is happening in the environment, and it just gives them the mood of the story. So, and another very interesting thing is, I don't know if you remember, when I was a child, we had these picture books where it was like 1,000 new words. So it was more like a fact book, where there were a lot of facts about everyday things, like an aeroplane has this much fuel or whatever it could be. But there were these images of different objects, and there were so many new things I learned from that book, because not everyone's been to a farm or a zoo, or to like the mountains or to the sea. Like, for people living in the inlands, have probably never seen the ocean or the sea, open sea. So how do they learn about these things? Through books and through pictures. That's when they realize there's something like this. So a lot of students actually, or a lot of children, you will see, they when they see something that they can relate to in a story, they'll actually point it out very excited, and they'll point out and say, oh yeah, I know this, or I'm like this, or I have that book, or I have that box, something like that. So they're very happy to be able to relate to the story, relate to the pictures in the story, or relate to the emotions in the story. So it's very important to expose children to pictures of things that they don't know and they usually wouldn't know, so that it expands their knowledge base. And like, they would be curious about different cultures, different sorts of environments, new inventions, about history. So there are so many sorry, different topics that children can learn about through illustrations and through books. And if they were just reading it, it might be a little boring to read about history or facts. But when you accompany that text with a picture, it is definitely going to make it more interesting, and it's going to increase their curiosity about it as well. So how to read an illustration. So now we know why it's important, but how do we read an illustration? What's reading an illustration? Like, we know how to read words, right? So there are three things to remember when you're trying to read an illustration. So number one is, what can you see? So this is something that you have to ask the children, or even ask yourselves when you're looking at an illustration. What is the subject matter? What are the colors used? What are the symbols? Do I see any symbols around? Or, are there any gestures? Is there something that's not very obvious, but it's happening? Or something in the details? So it's really to take your time and see and try to figure out the tiny details in an illustration. Second question to ask yourself is, how does this make me feel? How does this illustration make me feel? So ask the students to express how it makes them feel. How has it influenced them to feel this way? So if they see something violent happening, for example, the girl in this illustration is chopping down a tree, and the horse is getting a little excited about it. So how does it make the child feel? Are they scared? Are they curious to know what's happening? Are they angry? Whatever emotions that this evokes in them, ask them what they are feeling and why. So that's kind of making them understand how the illustrations impacting them, and what is the image trying to tell us. So the image is always trying to tell us a story, and it gives us a little more information than just the text. So what is the information trying to tell us? The illustrations are. So I have a quick, fun little game for you all. Okay, we've almost reached the end of the presentation, so we can get into the drawing in just a little bit. But let's try to read this illustration. Okay, so let's practice reading illustrations. And if you could just write down in the chat, I would love to hear some of your ideas about what you read in the illustration. So what do you notice in this illustration as teachers or as adults even? Okay, so the tiger is smelling something. That's what Divya says. Thank you so much. Anything else? Like, what else can you see? Because everyone's going to see different things. Everyone's going to have, a different way of looking at it, or different perspective, and they might pick up different points, which is going to be very interesting. So Sulakshana ma'am says animals are hiding. The tiger is walking with pride. The tiny animals are scared of the tiger. Few birds are hiding. Our view is towards the image instead of the words. The tiger looks happy and satisfied. The tiger is walking with some attitude. Animals are following the tiger. Smiling sun. It's a bright day in the forest. The sun is kind. So beautiful. Okay, so these are some lovely, and the nature is so beautiful. So some of the points that I had made a note of is, yeah, the tiger's attitude, the tiger's coloring. So sometimes for a child who's never seen a tiger in real life, this is a great way for them to know what a tiger looks like, or maybe what color it is. Then the time of the day. So sometimes the story might not tell us what time it is, but when you see the mood, the colors of the sky, it's like the sun is lower than it should be. So maybe it's evening time, maybe. Then we see the kind of foliage to be expected in a jungle. So this is also a good way for the children to learn about nature, about the kind of plants that grow in a particular environment, about the kind of plants and flowers they can find in a jungle. Other creatures that one might find in the jungle. So that's something that they can learn just by looking at the image. And then why are they hiding from the tiger? So the tiger is walking happily. A lot of you have said that maybe he's satisfied after a full meal. Is that why they're hiding from the tiger? We don't know. So that's just, a very interactive, fun way. This is how you read an illustration, where you focus on the beautiful artwork, but also to kind of find these details. So it's very cleverly done, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm sure even as adults, we'll enjoy it. But imagine how the children will feel if they perceive children's books in this way. Also, another question is, can you figure out what's going on in this illustration without the text? So there's no text at all about what's happening, right? So I have removed the text. So I would love to know if you can figure out what is happening in this picture. Emotions are exhibited, two mushrooms are fighting and the others are enjoying. Okay, anything else? So I also don't know what the text is, okay? So we're just going to try and figure out. Dancing and laughing, mushrooms are enjoying. Two mushrooms are being laughed at. Okay, they are on an adventure. Storm is coming. Lovely. Dancing mushrooms. So also if you notice the expressions of the mushrooms. So some of them are laughing, some of them are enjoying the fact that there might be a lovely fight happening. But then this one is a little sad, and this one is a little scared, and this one's a little worried for them, which you can come to know by the squiggly legs, which also means nervousness. And so maybe one of these mushrooms could be his friend, and this one doesn't want to fight, but everyone's telling them fight or whatever. And so there's so much to read. Yes, the air is blowing. You can see the leaves flying by, and the shape of the leaves are beautiful. So many things you can read just from the illustration, right, without the text. So that is what it means to read an illustration. So just few parting words before we go into drawing ourselves. Next time you share a picture books with children, be sure to pay attention to the illustrations, because reading picture books means exploring the art as well. So it's not just about reading the text, but when you read it along with the illustration, it just shows you a whole new perspective to that story. And spend the time discussing the story, pictures and words with the children, because this is what gives them the confidence, and it allows them to open up and share what they feel about the story, what they feel the characters are doing, or what events have unfolded. So that's how you can make reading a complete joy when you include the illustrations as part of the reading process. And the last thing that I would like to maybe remind all of us is, every child is an artist. The problem is how we define what an artist is. So great artist. So I think on that note, we should all become little artists again, and we should try and do a little bit of illustration ourselves. So I have a very fun session planned for you all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to put the camera on top of my workspace, and we can start drawing together. So you can collect the materials. Again, some A4 size or any sized papers will do, some pencils, erasers, and maybe a gel pen, ballpoint pen, anything. Okay, so I'm just going to swap the camera so you can see my desk. Okay, so I hope that's visible. Thank you. Sorry, just a second. I'm going to rotate it. Okay. So I hope that's properly visible for everyone. Okay, and we're going to start drawing. So what we're going to do now is we are going to start with a fun activity where we won't be thinking much, but we'll be enjoying just drawing for the sake of drawing, and also to use that as maybe art therapy or just to de-stress ourselves when things are getting a bit much. Okay, so I'm going to start with gel pens for this. You can use whatever you are comfortable with, and very simple exercises. You'll think even babies can do it. Why is Kosha showing me how to do this? But it can be very relaxing if you do it with the right attitude. Okay, so the first exercise that we're going to do is called circles. And here I'm just using a normal A4 size sheet. Okay, so don't worry too much about the paper. So what we're going to do is we're just going to draw the very basic shape of circles, but we're not going to overthink it at all. We are going to just try and do it intentionally with the right purpose and just slow down. So when things are very stressed, if we try to slow down and focus on our art, it can be relaxing. And for a minute, just for the time being, while you're focusing on your art, you kind of forget the rest of the world. And that's how it just really helps you calm down. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the circle and end the circle on the same dot. And it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, like mine's not, and that's okay. So what we're doing is we're trying to slow down and create an intentional circle. What we don't want is something like this. No, we want to try to join the dot and we want to go slow with it. We're not in a hurry, we're not in a rush. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make a very pretty pattern just out of circles, like maybe bigger circles, smaller circles, and it doesn't have to be perfect. But I'm just going to try to relax while I do this and slow down. Okay, so that's the trick. The trick is slowing down, and that's what makes this work. So maybe draw a few more bigger ones, some more smaller ones. What I also do is I try to color in the spaces in between to make it look more neat. You can do that if you want. Yeah, like that. Now another thing, just to complicate this circle exercise, is I'm going to introduce spirals. That means, and there are two kinds. One is an open-ended spiral, okay, and the other one is a close-ended one, where I close it here. So this is open and this is closed. And you can even start inside out, okay, so there's no rule. So you can start like this. That's fine too. And what I'm going to do is now some of the bigger circles, I'm going to try and put spirals on it. So this is all about slowing down and making intentional marks. Because when you use art as a therapy and art as a tool for healing, it's all about the process rather than the result of it. So about slowing down, about enjoying yourself. So like these mini spirals, maybe some more circles. Okay, so that's the first exercise where you can create just a small box full of circles where you just slow down and imagine when you're really stressed out and things are pretty tough that day and you have a lunch break. and you just take 10 minutes out for yourself in that lunch break. Take a piece of paper and any pen or pencil, draw a small box and just try to slow down and fill it in circles. It's just going to relax you, right? So now the second exercise is going to be basic shapes. So we're going to kind of progress from circles to other shapes as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a few basic shapes. Again, slow, intentional. It's okay if it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be. As long as you're enjoying the process, that's completely fine. So I'm drawing a square, I'm drawing a rectangle. I'm pretty sure we've gotten the circle down already. Maybe a triangle as well. We could even include an oval or a semicircle. So again, slow and intentional, and it doesn't have to be perfect. What we don't want is something drawn like this. Okay, so that's what we don't want. So now that we've got that down, okay, we can draw intentional slow shapes. What we're going to do next is I'm going to go to this cleaner side of the paper and I'm going to try and use all these shapes to create a pattern. I'm not thinking about this, okay? I have nothing planned. I am just going to start randomly and just see where it goes, see where it takes me. Okay, so we're just going to slow down with it. After that, so basically what this exercise is all about is what I want to tell you first. Remember when we were children, or since a lot of you might be working with younger children, they have these toys where there are all these blocks of different shapes and they try to put it together and play with it and try to make new shapes from it and try to see what all is possible. So that's what we're trying to do with our drawing. And this kind of an activity really opens up the creative, which is the right side of our brain. And funnily enough, it is also the side of our brain which comes up with creative problem solving. So that's a lot of fun, right? Just a second. Can you excuse me for a minute? Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. So this kind of an activity really helps you with, coming up with creative solutions to problems that you might even be facing in your like work life or personal life. So when you take time out like this to really just be with yourself, it relaxes you to a point where you kind of start coming up with more innovative ideas. So what I do is I'm taking just random shapes, okay, and just putting them wherever I feel like. So I'm just playing around with the shapes and then I'm trying to add patterns to those shapes just to see what would happen if I put, maybe I make this into like a check pattern. What's going to happen? How is it going to look? And it's okay if it looks horrible. No one's judging our artwork here. It's all about having fun. And so when we take out time for ourselves to do these kind of activities, it really relaxes us and de-stresses us. So now I'm just going to color in the alternative squares. I don't even know where I'm going with this, and that's completely fine. Okay, so we can just add different kinds of patterns, make up your own designs, make up your own patterns, and it would be lovely. It would be a lovely exercise. Okay, so maybe I messed up and that's okay. Maybe I'll try and fix the mistake. So, that's what I really want to tell you, that art doesn't have to be perfect, because art is about expressing yourself, and it's all about trial and error. And it's just about slowing down and enjoying the process of it. So that's a little bit of how you can include mindfulness into your art, like into your life through art. So this is how art can also kind of be a trigger for mindfulness. Since we, like a lot of us are spiritual people, right? And we practice mindfulness through maybe meditation or something. But this is another way to bring about a little bit of peace, a little bit of mindfulness in our lives through art. Okay, so just experimenting with different things. And the third kind of exercise, before we move on to drawing things that you actually know, not abstract things like characters, but just some more design stuff, is maybe the circles that we had drawn earlier. We could add curves to them. So what are curves is things that maybe start from down, go up, and then come back down and end in a swirl. So it starts by going up, then it comes down, and then it ends in a swirl. So we're just trying our hand at different kinds of patterns and different kinds of ways of moving our hand. So this is actually really good exercise before we start drawing, to warm up. So it's more like a warm-up exercise, but also when you do it just by itself, maybe when you have 10 minutes for yourself, it could be a very good just exercise to take some time out. So now I'm just going to randomly also include curvy lines into my, what this is called as composition. So we already know what a composition or an essay is in literature language, but this is a composition in art where you put things together in a certain way. And you're just experimenting, trying things out, and having fun. Having fun is like the basic requirement. No other rule except have fun. Okay, maybe add some spirals, maybe add some different shapes also to it. Like I could add a big heart here, color it in. Or we could even add petals to it. So just kind of to show you what are the possibilities of it. Okay, so just play around with that, try different things out. I actually had created something. I'm just gonna try and find it to show you. So I did these mini mandalas and I did one just with circles. So I'm trying to find one. So this is a pattern that I did. It's really tiny, right? And all I did is use circles, but different sizes of it. And it turned out to be a pretty pattern. So it's like you don't have to draw something fancy to make it, look good and even make you feel good about it. So it's all about even the most basic shapes. Like here's a not very perfect circle, concentric circles, but it's all about just enjoying the process, like coloring in all these areas and trying to play around with the thick and thin of it. So that's just what it's all about. Okay, so maybe now we could go on to drawing faces. And I'm sure a lot of people might be like, oh, I'm not a creative person, I'm not artistic, I can't draw. But today's session is very rightly called Everyone Can Draw. So no, you can. I'm telling you, you can, because I'm going to show you these really easy techniques to be able to do that. Okay, so here we'll just use some pencil. I'm just showing you 2-3 different brands of pencils and erasers. You can use any, it doesn't matter what pencil you're using, what eraser you're using, it doesn't matter. So just pick whichever one you're comfortable with, and we can start. Also, if anyone wants to really share what they've done with the this exercise, if you want to start your cameras and just hold up your pieces of paper, I would love to see. I think we all would love to see what you have come up with. So if anyone wants to share that, please feel free to do so. We would love to see that. Oh wow, I can already see some beautiful patterns. It looks lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. They're all lovely patterns. Wow, you guys are doing amazing. Someone's already filled up a tiny little box, and that's awesome. That's an amazing exercise. So thank you so much for sharing that. Really, really lovely. So I'm glad I hope you are enjoying the session. I'm just assuming you are, but I'm glad you're drawing along with me. And maybe now we'll start with the faces, okay? So just to tell you that yes, you can draw, and it's very simple. We're not going to do anything complicated. We're just going to learn how to draw basic expressions. And we're going to start with something as basic as a circle, which you by now already are very good at drawing. Okay, so here I have just drawn a circle. Now I'm going to show you how to draw a very basic face. Very simple. Also, when I'm doing these guidelines, just don't press your pencil too hard because you might want to erase the guidelines later. So very lightly, I'm pressing it a little hard so you can see. So very lightly, just cut the face into half first. Okay, and then into another half. So I have cut my face into 4 pieces. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this middle line to draw the nose. Then I'm going to just above this line, draw 2 dots. Okay, so this is like the basic face where you draw the eyes and the nose. And then when you want to show different expressions, it's all about playing around with the eyebrows and the mouth. So we're going to see how to do that. Right now, we're just going to draw normal eyebrows and maybe just a sweet smiling face. Okay, very simple, easy to do. Everyone can do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just one of the ways to do it. Okay, if we want to make it like a proper face with ears and hair and everything, then we use this horizontal line as a marker to draw the ears. That's where the ears will go. Just so that you can get it same on both the sides. That's what these guidelines are for. Okay, and then we draw the hair depending on whatever hairstyle you want. The easiest one is curly hair. I'm showing very easy things right now. Okay, and maybe if you want some overlapping hair, it's covering his forehead a little bit. So that's a basic face. Either I can color this in or I can erase it, up to you. I think I'm going to color it in because this pencil is pretty dark. So you have a better idea of what it looks like. There you go. And then you can erase these lines. See, I pressed it too hard, so I can't erase it all the way. But I hope you've drawn them lightly. So that's a face. Simple, easy. I think everyone can do it, right? And if you want to, so we'll draw some more expressions, but we won't be drawing hair for that. Okay, because hair you can just style it however you want. And even if you don't want to draw it, that's okay. So let's draw another circle. Again, very lightly cut it into 4 pieces. Okay, simple enough. Now we are going to again draw the nose first. Then we're going to draw 2 dots for the eyes. It always starts the same way. Simple enough. And then we are going to, this one we're going to make a little sad. So a upside down smile, a little bit of a frown. And even the eyebrows will be upside down like this. Okay, so can you feel that emotion through the expression? And then we erase these extra lines because we don't want them, right? When we just want them to know that we are drawing everything on the right place. Okay, so that's a sad smiley. Now again, let's draw a circle, cut it into 4. This time we're going to do something different with the eyes also. So I draw my nose as always. Actually, I want to draw it a little higher this time. Okay, and I'm going to draw tiny curves for the eyes like this. And he is going to be laughing, okay, enjoying himself or herself. So we're going to make a big laughing mouth. And this is going to be his teeth. Two curves for the tongue. Okay, very simple. And we're just going to color the inside of the mouth because it's dark inside, right? So we can't really see. And then we draw the eyebrows, which are raised a little high. And then once again, erase the extra lines because we don't need them. And that's how it is. Okay, all good. Everyone's with me, right? So now we'll draw some more expressions. So you would have noticed it's all about changing just a few things here and there. And that gives you a whole new expression, a whole new emotion to work with. So imagine when you're teaching the children, when you're trying to show them different expressions, maybe if you could draw some of these on the blackboard, it doesn't even take very long, right? And maybe that could help you get through to the child better. So I'm just brainstorming about ways you could probably use this. Okay, this one's going to be a little scared, okay? So nose again. Nose will stay the same. That doesn't change. This time the eyes will be like this, a little bigger, a little wider. Because when you're scared, sometimes your eyes go big. Okay. And then again, upside down eyebrows. You know when they used to make animated movies in Disney before it became computerized, the animators used to keep a mirror on their desk and they used to try funny expressions on it to draw it on the characters. So next time you want to draw a new expression, you can totally try that trick. So now we can just draw his mouth like this with like a little bit of a rounded rectangle sort of thing. And just a line like this in the middle. Does he look scared? Maybe for the scared expression, we could even, make the hair stand up a little bit, things like that. Like if he had his ears here, just like he's so scared and all his hair is standing up. Simple enough? Yes, you can do it. Looks fine. Okay, maybe just one or two more. If you have any suggestions for the kind of expressions we should draw, you can totally write them on chat and we'll try to draw that. So if there's any particular expression you want, this one we'll make angry. Shy, okay, we'll do shy next. So this is angry. We draw the nose and the eyes as always. Now we get the eyebrows coming all the way down, okay? Because when you're angry, that's what happens. And then a big upside down laugh. And just the top teeth. So that's angry, okay? Like someone screaming at you. So if you want different, okay, so shy, bored, surprised, and some different hairstyles. So we'll try a few. Usually if you see from the ears, it's a little straight up over here. Sorry. So there's no correct way to do a hairstyle, but you can just try and experiment with it yourself as well. Okay, and see what all new hairstyles you can come up with. So here's one. We already have 3 hairstyles. Okay, this one's going to be surprise. Yeah. So again, when someone's surprised, and their eyes are a little wider. And the eyebrows go way up. And then just a O, like they're saying, oh, what happened? Something like that. Okay, so like you saw, it's just a play of the mouth, the eyebrows, and sometimes minor tweaks in the eyes. Okay, so now we will do bored. So in bored, the eyes will change. So what we'll do is we'll draw the nose as always. And then here, we'll just draw two horizontal lines, maybe looking the other way. Maybe something like this. I mean, if you come up with a better bold expression yourself, you can totally try out different ways to show the same emotion. So that's a good exercise for you to do. I mean, tomorrow's a holiday. If anyone wants to play around with these expressions and, you know, try something out, you totally can do that. I'm just playing around with the hair a little bit. I don't know what I'm really trying to get at, but I'm just trying to do something new. And it's a good way to like really observe. So through observation is how you will get these tricks on how to draw different kinds of hair and things like that. Even just by looking at people around you. Okay, another one we had was shy, right? So I'm just gonna try. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. So for shy, first we draw the nose. Very light curve on the eyes. Okay, because they're like half closed because the person's too shy to open them completely. Maybe a slight smile, raised eyebrows. I don't know if that works, but we can try some other ways as well to show shy. I wonder what will happen if we change the eyes. So what I did is I changed the eyes and I just put tiny curves under the eyes. So you can just add small details like that. Maybe widen the smile, try different things. Okay, so that's how you draw expressions. I think we'll stop here for today because we also have to take some questions. So if you have any questions about today's session or about anything art related, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Zoom, we would love to take your questions.
Thank you, Kosha ma'am. And I must say, it was indeed a wonderful one. I'm sure there must be many people, for example, me, who never knew how to draw a human face. But I'm very happy that today I've learned something. So I'm sure everyone who has attended this session today has benefited by it. And now, with your due permission, ma'am, can we begin with our questionnaire? I have a few questions with me.
Okay, great.
The first question, Kosha ma'am, that has been asked is, in this world, with the present scenario where Corona has created a havoc and where children are literally forced to attend all their classes via laptop or mobile phone, thereby increasing their screen time and also increasing them to a lot of online cartoon shows, etc. How do we encourage them into this art therapy?
So by making it fun, because I think the reason children do whatever they do is because they want to look for fun, right? They want entertainment. Like they're sick of looking into screens. They're sick of just, you know, the same old studying. And then TV is the most entertaining because audio visual is something that attracts all of us as human beings. So I don't know, I'm not much of an from a human being perspective. If you make art fun, then they will do it. And then they'll want to do it and they'll take time out for it. So these circles and things, maybe that's more for adults, like as teachers or as, you know, adults when you're so stressed and you want to just take some time out. But for children, we would have to come up with some different fun techniques. Maybe we can teach them how to do prints, like take some paint, take some vegetables, cut that, and make prints out of that. Because maybe as I was a child, like when I was a child, I used to love getting my hand, I still do, love getting my hands dirty with paint and just, get into it and make it all messy, but have fun with it. So if we try and incorporate some of that fun element of art, like finger painting or whatever it is, maybe that'll help.
Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone must have got the clue what you said, ma'am. The second question that has been asked is, how is mandala art beneficial for children?
So in fact, I do some of these workshops, and I've done one for a corporate, and it turned out most of the children of the employees of that company attended the sessions. It was more like me and the children, but they had so much fun with it, and they were so good. So we don't give children the credit that, they're really artistic and they have so much potential in them, and we don't even realize it. So because their artwork was really amazing, and I told them, you know what, just do your own patterns. Like I taught them one way, but I was like, if you're more creative and you want to do your own thing, and they came up with such innovative things. So even for children, if you make it fun, if you praise them, like appreciate what they're doing, because I think as human beings, everyone loves to be appreciated for a work well done, right? And encourage them, motivate them when they know that what they're doing is right or they're on the right track. So even a little bit of motivation, then they could, I mean, you'll just see an amazing input from their side. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Thank
my
you, ma'am.
little.
Thank you so much. There is one more question. The question goes as, I am a parent of a 12-year-old child, and many a times I see, as my child is studying, she is drawing at the side. What would you call it?
Doodling. So
Doodling.
yeah, so I used to do that as well. I remember when I was in school, behind all my notebooks with the pen, I would just doodle because I just found it so much fun. So that's actually doodling, and it's become very popular now, the art of doodling. So that's where you just create patterns or little objects of your own, and I mean that's a great way. In fact, I don't know if a lot of you might actually relate to this. Before cell phones, when we had those landline phones and we used to just talk on them, and we had for some reason some notepad or something next to it, we would just find ourselves doodling something, drawing some little things in the corner of that paper while we were talking on the phone. So that's all doodling. It's very subconscious, and in fact I have a couple of doodles. If you want, I could probably, so these are very advanced though, but it started like that. It's like I let my subconscious just take over, and it's just so much fun. Like I really enjoyed the process, and I just got lost in it for hours and hours. So it's something like that. And I love doing tiny tiny details. So that's how it began. It was just like random stuff that's in my mind, and this is an outlet to it. So yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. There's one more, ma'am, the last one, I presume. In that, there is, again, it's on behalf of a parent who asks that she has been attending workshops for her child where she was advised that because your child doesn't sit in one place for a long time, being a young child of third standard, so the people there, when she had attended a program, they had suggested her that she makes her practice mandala art form.
Okay.
So the question is, how beneficial is mandala art form to increase the concentration level of a child? And not only for a third standard or fourth standard, but at higher levels also. How does it help?
So basically, actually, not just mandala, sorry, but it depends on the way you take that art form, because it's like if you are taking it as a meditative exercise, and that's what I always tell them when I take the mandala. Sorry, my charging's getting off. So, so like that's what I tell them in my mandala workshops that it depends on the attitude that you have before you're doing making your own mandala. Either you can have that attitude that I'm just making a pretty design, and that's okay. But if you want to go deeper, then you have to have that mindset that I'm doing it as a meditative exercise. I'm doing it because I want to benefit from it. And then the whole process is you could start some slow background music, just work on it, and just like while you're doing it, process your thoughts or get lost in it. And the more intricate details you do, the fun part about mandala is you have to try and get all the different patterns looking the same, right? You want consistency. So that means it requires focus. It requires you to really focus on it. So you're concentrating on it to make sure all the petals around that circle are the same size, the same length, it looks similar. So it takes your concentration, it needs your focus. And maybe that's how, that's why it was suggested that it could help. But then you have to definitely doing repetitive patterns when you have to make sure they all look the same help with your focus and concentration. But is the child going to want to do that? So maybe you could start some soft music, maybe you could make an environment so that the child wants to do that. And then it could also be like when I used to draw my doodles, I used to put on music in the background and I used to just lose myself in it. Like, oh, maybe a cartoon show or a TV show, and I would not pay attention, but it was background noise. And then I was just letting my subconscious come out. So if you feel like the child would benefit more if you just spend some time with them, talk to them, or do that activity as a parent yourself and make it a parent-child activity. So I guess that could work as well. Just make it an environment so they want to do the activity and they enjoy it. It's not like a forced thing.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm sure everyone's questions have been answered and we all have been immensely benefited by it. So I would request Mahamaya ma'am to take over with the proceedings. Mahamaya
Thank
ma'am,
you,
over to you.
Lata. Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of entire SSRVM family, I would like to extend a sincere thanks to our chief guest, Ms. Kosha Bhatia, for sharing her views with us. Thank you, ma'am. It was indeed a very informative session. I am sure each one of us would be inculcating and organizing such techniques in our schools. I further extend my sincere gratitude to our chairman and trustees for providing us with such platform. I would also like to thank our beloved Rama Akka for her guidance and support throughout. I would also like to thank Jayashree Murli ma'am, Sameer Kapadia sir, and the entire Lit Fest team for all their valuable contribution and support. Last but not the least, I would express my gratitude to our back-end technical support team for making this session a success. Thank you all. I would also like to bring to your notice that there are many such upcoming events and informative sessions like these to be held in line. The next session, Librarians as Leader, Part 2, is scheduled on 30th of January. Also requesting all our viewers to kindly like our Facebook page to get all updates of such upcoming events well in advance. I would now like to conclude today's session with a quote by our Reverend Guruji, His Holiness Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Ji. Joy is never tomorrow. It is always now. Hope you had a